any student struggling with designing their piece for the puzzle project can use this video to help them create the tic-tac-toe board. Once I log into TinkerCAD, I'm going to create a new design. As always, I'm going to change the units to inches, update grid, and for this project, I'm going to make a snap grid of 1/4 of an inch. This will allow me to move with my arrow keys on my keyboard a little easier. To start, just like the activity says, create the sizes of the main block. Now, I did that very quickly. You'll notice that once I place the box here, I click on it, and instead of dragging, which I can do, I'm going to click on the outside box, one of the white boxes, and I'm just going to type 6. I hit enter, and it goes 6 inches. I'm going to do the same thing, 6, enter. Click off of it, I can click and drag and move that piece back onto my work plane. The object is not 1 inch tall. So notice how I rotate around. That is the key to some of these design programs, rotating around to see the best view. I now select that white box, and the size is 3/4 of an inch. If I had 3/4, it'd be 75 cents. So now I have the traditional block of wood that is given out in class for the projects. It is 6 by 6, so it's a square, 3/4 of an inch tall. Now I'm going to start putting in the cuts of the grid for tic-tac-toe. There are no measurements associated with this. I simply am going to use my prior experience of playing tic-tac-toe to set this up. My cuts are going to be, again selecting the outside, 1/8 of an inch, so 0.125. Rotating around is key, as I mentioned. And then the height of that cut is not going to be 1 inch because the cut does not go all the way through the piece. I'm going to make the cut also 1/8 of an inch. You'll see that the program puts this on the bottom of the work plane. I need to use this black arrow to pull that to the top of my work plane. Because my snap grid is 1/4 of an inch, it only moves in 1/4 of an inch segments. While doing this, I'm going to change my snap grid to 1/8 of an inch. My piece has now disappeared, so I might need to move my piece out of the way in order to grab it. Remember, you can always undo any changes that are needed. I'm going to slide that over, bring my piece back to the work plane. You'll see that it snaps in smaller segments. And I'm going to bring this down. And I want to be inside of the piece, flush with the top. Next, I can use my arrow keys on the keyboard to move that. The length of this should be 6 inches, so it spans the entire block. Once I have that created, I can copy and paste. How I'm going to do that is I'm going to either come up here to the top left and hit copy, or use the hotkeys, which is Control plus C. So Control plus C on my keyboard, and then paste, or Control plus V. It created another design, the same item, and I'm simply going to place this here. We can move these later as long as they do not go into the block. I'm going to do the same thing, Control C, Control V, and now I'm going to rotate this by selecting it. Now I'm going to go a full 90 degrees. This way I can create my grid the other direction. Control C, Control V, and I can use my arrow keys to set it up. I'm not going to require any specific measurements for this grid, but you can tell that this grid has larger sections on the inside at the moment. So I'm going to move over a couple of pieces. I can also line it up based on the grid that is down on the work plane. So if I bring that over to these corners, I can use my arrow keys to make this easier on me. Rotate around so I can see the grid on this side. Make sure it is flush with the edges. So that is about 1.5 each block. We can again see that that center block is a little larger. So I'm simply going to step over one arrow key all around. That looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is, before I go any further, I'm going to cut these into the block by holding Shift and selecting the outside. If I select all of these items, I go up, I click Group, or Control G is the hotkey. So now I have successfully cut into that block. Select that block. Doesn't want to allow me to click, so I'm going to rotate a little bit. There we go. Shift, Group. Click off of the piece. Shift, click on there. Group. And I have one more to do. Hold down Shift, click on the block, and Group. My grid is completely cut in there. I'm going to switch back to the 1/4 inch snap grid. And I may have to do this a couple of times because I may need to go back and find my part in here. This circle is too large. I'm going to select the outside edge and change this to a 1/4 inch circle. I need to change 2 dimensions to keep that round area. If I were to cut all the way through my piece, the peg that I put in there when I play the game would fall all the way through. To change that, simply change your measurement to a 1/2 inch. I can no longer see that piece, so I'm going to slide it up. And there we go. I'm going to use my arrow keys to get this where I think center is. I can click on the cube over here to give me a completely straight view. You can tell that the center is hard to find. This is where the snap grid may need to be changed again to 1/8 of an inch so I can get closer to the center. I'm going to say that that is close enough for us. Control C, Control V. Keep it right over the top. And use your arrow keys to align the next hole that's going in your piece. Once those 3 are set, I'm going to hold down Shift and select all 3 items to make this easier. Control C for Control Copy, Control V for Paste, and using my arrow keys, I am simply going to move those over. If I hit Paste up here again, I have those 3 holes again. But notice how they kind of disappeared. They are now underneath my piece. I need to go and drag from the black arrow once again all the way up. They do not look like they are in line. I gotta shift them down. Now we have those selected. Hold the outside, hold the shift key, click the block again, group it. And we have that cut. You need to go around, hold down shift and select everything. And group each individual one, or you can select multiples like I did in the beginning. Rotate around. So you can select these areas, shift, select, group. All right, my puzzle project is complete. Now, to show that I've done the work, I am going to rotate so it's at an angle, and I'm going to take a screenshot. Whatever device you are using may have a different way of screenshotting, so consult the internet if you are unsure. Once that has a screenshot taken, rotate around to another angle, take another screenshot, upload both of those into Google Classroom, and you are complete. Happy designing!